Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is BP Miller and I'm the host of 10 Rounds. You're getting this before we get into the interview with Scott because we kind of had a lot of glitches yesterday. Facebook streaming wasn't working, and then the recording in Zoom conked out about 5 minutes in or right before it started. I'm not really sure what happened, but we missed the first few minutes with Scott, which is why you're seeing this before you actually get to see the interview. So I just wanted to do our introduction leading up to it so you know who it is that we're talking to. And plus, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Icon Media Works, a full-service design and marketing agency specializing in brand creation and promotion located in the heart of downtown Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. You can find them at iconmediaworks.com. Scott Strazzani joined the photography staff at the San Francisco Chronicle in 2014 after spending the first 27 years of his career at Chicago newspapers, including 13 at the Chicago Tribune. Strazzani is a former POI NPPA National Newspaper Photographer of the Year, an 11-time Illinois Photographer of the Year winner, and part of the Chicago Tribune team that won a Pulitzer Prize back in 2007 for investigative journalism. Strazzani's personal projects, Common Ground, have been featured in National Geographic, Mother Jones, New York Times Lens Blog, and on CBS Sunday Morning. The 23-year-long effort, which has won Best of Photography's Best Feature Video and POI's Community Awareness Award, became his first book with the publisher PSG. In October 2017, Scott's second book, Shooting from the Hip, was released. The book consists of iPhone hipstamatic snaps from around the world. So there you go, a little brief introduction. Please enjoy where we picked up on the recording yesterday with our interview with Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist from the San Francisco Chronicle, Scott Strazzani. Thank you and have a great day.
The editor of the paper's name was Bob Bong, and I think he was high that day because he ended up hiring me. And I was making $4.25 an hour for 16 hours a week, and had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to use a flash. I still don't. I didn't, at that time you had to roll your own film, and I didn't really know how to do that. So it was basically learning by making mistakes. And I was at that paper for a year, and it got bought out by the Daily Southtown, which is a little bit bigger paper. But the great thing about that paper is they covered professional sports, and that's what I wanted to do. My dream was always to work for Sports Illustrated. And then I started photographing Chicago sports, and then all other types of assignments, and stayed there for 11 years. And then I moved on to the Herald News in Joliet, Illinois. And that's when I kind of got my education in what photojournalism really is. I was working with this incredible group of photographers: Rob Finch, John Lowenstein, Lee Daughtridge, Todd Heisler, just amazing photographers and great people. And at the time I was like mid to upper 30s, and they were all 22. But I would still hang out with them, and we'd have Friday night photo parties where we'd bring our photos that we took during the last week, and we'd drink beer and we'd look at our little printouts. And in '99, Rob Finch, who was 22 or 23 at the time, won National Newspaper Photographer of the Year. And at that point, I thought only Washington Post, New York Times photographers could win an award like that. And when I saw that Rob Finch won, I was like, damn, I can do that. And then so the next year I went out and I won it, and so it was definitely a great time for community journalism back then. Everything in my portfolio was shot within 10 miles of the newspaper. And, every frame was tilted too, because that was back in the day, you would tilt every frame. And so then I spent 3 years in Joliet, and then the Chicago Tribune hired me. And I spent 11 wonderful years at the Tribune, shooting the Chicago White Sox winning the World Series, a couple of Blackhawks Stanley Cup championships, a lot of amazing news events. And, people always said, oh, you're at your dream job, the Chicago Tribune. And I loved working there. It was never really my dream job, but I did really enjoy being in downtown Chicago. And at that point, I started doing some street photography, which is something I'd never done in the past. And throughout this whole process, from the Daily Southtown to the Herald News to the Chicago Tribune, I started working on a personal project on a pair of senior citizen cattle farmers in suburban Chicago. And that turned into my Common Ground project. So that was something that kind of happened as I moved along and started learning about what photojournalism was and what doing a long-term story was. And once again, I just kind of learned as I went. Never had much vision of the future, just kind of worked in the moment and kind of soaked up as much photography as I could from other people. Always had the, great amount of people working around me who were very kind with their time and sharing their photography. And then, what are we talking here now? Mid 2010s. I went out to Washington, D.C. For a National Geographic seminar, which is a daily seminar they have, and they invite photographers around the country to go to it. And after the seminar, they have a 1 hour cocktail party. And so I was, flittering around the room, talking to as many people as I can, and had a couple, 2, 3 beers, and like, oh, I think I gotta go to the bathroom. And so as I'm heading to the bathroom, Todd Heisler is standing there, and he's on his way out the door, and he's like, "Hey, Scott, I'm going out to dinner with a couple of my old colleagues from Denver. Would you like to come with?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So I took care of business, went with them, and went to dinner. And one of the people at dinner was Judy Walgren, who at the time was the director of photography at the San Francisco Chronicle. And we had a couple glasses of wine. She said, "Hey, Strazzani, how do you like Chicago?" And I'm like, "It's okay. I like it, She said, "Come work for me in San Francisco." And I'm like, "Awesome. Sounds great." And that was about it. That's kind of the entire reason that I moved out to California. And I've, absolutely greatest move I ever made. Been here 6 years now. Amazing part of the country. It's beautiful. It's gritty. It's a lot of news, a lot of great sports. I got here the year before the Golden State Warriors started going to the NBA Finals, so photographed 5 NBA Finals in a row. So once again, I still love sports, but I'm still doing my personal projects and things like that. And met a beautiful woman, Kim, and we live in Mill Valley, and we've been sheltering in place now. Even though I get to leave 5 days a week to go to work, but been having a good time here, and our relationship is just getting stronger and stronger as we spend more time together. So it's even though there's terrible things going out in the world, I always try to put an optimistic spin on everything. And I've definitely had a blessed life and a blessed career, and just can't imagine doing anything else. If I was a tire dealer, I think I would be an overweight, bald alcoholic for sure. Because I just could not imagine myself being in an office job or trying to sell things, because I'm the worst salesman in the world. I'd be giving everything away for free. So definitely that's like my 10-minute life story.
Early on, somebody had said, "Oh, you got your dream job. You're working, at the Trib." What was your dream job? So if it wasn't
it always was Sports Illustrated,
Okay.
and then the sports photography world got destroyed by people giving their work away for free and people taking advantage of that. And now it's very difficult to make a living as only a sports photographer, as a freelancer. Sports Illustrated is just a shell of it what it used to be. They fired all their staff photographers, and part of me would like to be a full-time sports photographer, but then I think of all the things that I would miss that I do besides sports. And so it's interesting. Like I'll go to a photo conference, and some people are like, "Oh, I didn't know you shot sports," and some people are like, "Oh, I thought you only shot sports," And so I kind of have this kind of photography skill set that is kind of very wide. And I think working at newspapers has done that, because as most people know, as a newspaper photographer, you can have a day where you shoot a funeral, a food shot, a sporting event, and a parade, and so you have to be cranking out photos. My first 10, 15 years on the job, I worked at papers where we had 5 to 6 assignments a day, and you had to just get in and get out and make a moment. And so it definitely, especially when you're shooting film and you couldn't chimp the photo and see what you had to really work it. Now you can kind of like, okay, I got it, I can go. But back then it was just like you'd have to shoot 10 images you thought were good before you could leave.
Now, do you miss the film days? I mean,
No.
I know you've embraced digital quite a bit, but I was curious, and I didn't even have this on my list of questions to ask, but
Yeah.
I'm curious if you miss.
Yeah,
film.
I'm not a technical photographer. I have no interest in talking about gear or cameras, or I've always been blessed with my newspapers giving me the best gear in the world. So it's not like I would want to shoot with a Barbie camera, but I do enjoy shooting with stuff. But it's funny you bring up film, because I've just been over the last couple of weeks scanning my negatives back.
I was just going to talk about that. Don't get too far
Scanning negatives from the 1990 Chicago Bulls run and all this other stuff, and so it's a kind of just a small amount of my work from the past that I kind of took along with me from place to place. And And now I'm just kind of, I bought a scanner and I'm really enjoying kind of going back and, you know, looking at my work, but I'm also kicking myself for what a, like, I was not a smart photographer back then. I had some talent, but I didn't kind of understand the history part of photography. I didn't step back and have context to my images. I was all tight. I was, you know, just kind of shooting for the moment, shooting for contest, you know, high impact photos. And I wish I could go back in time and just step back. Like I did a story on the Chicago Stadium's final year. And looking at my negatives, I only worked on that for like 3 or 4 different games. And it was very, you know, I like the photos just because they're old and they have really good memories of the Chicago Stadium for me. But as a photojournalistic project, it's very thin, and I didn't really do a great job of covering the fans. So it's interesting and humbling going back and looking at your work from 25 years ago, and you know, I had like 4 sheets of negatives from one Chicago Bulls game, and one entire page was some stupid bear performing in a halftime act. And like, what the fuck am I wasting my time shooting a bear? I should have been following Michael Jordan back to the locker room, you know? It was
Well,
just,
part of that also is that you, you know, I guess, and that's part of that was going to lead into the next question, which is, we all don't necessarily know what we're doing when we first start out. And our eye and our vision changes as we get older, and the way we shoot changes because, you're dynamic and the way that you look at life changes. So, you know, do you think that you're kind of ragging on yourself a little bit? I mean, I've been seeing some of these images that have been coming out on your Instagram and Facebook and so on and so forth from that series with Jordan, some of the shots before the buildings were torn down. But if you didn't have the life that you've had since that time till now, would you have the eye that you have now? Like, don't you need that kind of background a little bit to have those shitty moments that we all have, no matter where you are in your career? I mean, I had bad moments when I started. I have bad moments now. The difference is I definitely have gained more knowledge during that time. You have as well, and obviously your eye has taken you many places, since those times back in the mid '90s. So, the question that becomes is, number one, would you necessarily be where you are without those times and seeing things differently? And then the follow up, which was the question. And real quick, anybody that's watching, unfortunately, the Facebook live stream just isn't working today, which is why that's not going to go on. But if you have a question that you'd like to ask Scott, we can bring you on, or you can ask in the Q&A area. Just put it up in the Q&A area, and we'll either bring you on, or if we're short on time, we'll ask. So in all your years as a photojournalist, what's the craziest thing that you've covered that still stands out in your mind all these years later?
oh God. Uh, there's so many varied answers to that. Like for me, the coolest thing I've ever covered were the 3 Olympics I've covered. Like Olympic Games are amazing, and I covered 2004 in Athens, 2006 in Torino, and 2008 in Beijing, and haven't had the opportunity to shoot since then. I would love to get back to a Summer Olympics eventually. Winter Olympics, I have no interest in photographing again. The sports are amazing, but I'm done with cold, and I don't really want to sit out by a ski hill for 16 hours. But I would love to shoot another Summer Olympics at some point. I know it's coming to LA in 2028, so hopefully I'll still be ambulatory then, and I can make my way down there. But oh God, it's like just so many amazing experiences and so many people I've met over the years. Obviously Harlow and Gene Cagwin, and Amanda and Ed Grabenhofer and their kids. Those from Common Ground. Those experiences are great.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, like if I had to pick like the image, if I can only pull one image from my entire career and
not
pick
even an
up from the
image,
garbage,
just yeah, it doesn't even have to be an image. Just like when you look back on your career and you're like, that was some crazy shit. Like that's one of those things where we all have our favorite images.
Okay. Yeah, the craziest shit I do is cover wildfires. If that's crazy shit, like because one, it's like a wildfire starts, everyone leaves town, and we're heading in. We're right behind the firefighters. You have no idea where these fires are going. I have very little experience with wildfires. I try to be smart about it, but part of it's like the way California photographers cover wildfires are two ways. One, they go in a pack, and that's probably the best way to do it. Like, and Noah Berger and Josh Edelson and Justin Sullivan, Gabrielle Lurie, and Stephen Lamb, and all these photographers, and Marcus Yam will come up from LA, and they'll kind of hang out together, and they'll support each other. But for some reason, I'm kind of have this lone wolf mentality, because I don't want to have the sixth version of the same scene as other photographers. So maybe, so I always kind of go off by myself, because I want to have a unique image, and maybe it's not the smartest way to do it, but I try to stay safe and don't take much chances. But still, wildfires are the craziest thing. And I when I get assigned to go to a wildfire, it's 50% dread and 50% excitement, because the most amazing thing I've ever witnessed in my life was standing in Paradise, California, after the campfire roared through, every building on fire, basically nobody in town. Standing there watching a Mormon meeting house burned to the ground over about a 3-hour period, no fire trucks around, and it just was the most awe-inspiring, saddest, craziest thing I've ever seen. And and it's weird though, you get so used to it quickly. So you could be standing in the middle of the street, Instagramming something, or while everything's burning around you, but you get so used to it, which is probably not good. So yeah, definitely, if we're going crazy, weird, scary, wildfires is it for sure.
Fair enough. And now I definitely, and I know that you and I have discussed this, people that aren't photojournalists don't understand how certain people can just run into a situation. Michelle saw it firsthand. We were in New York the day after Trump was elected, and we were walking back from Adorama, and we got caught up in this crazy protest. It was almost like a march that was going on. And the first thing I did was just put Michelle off to the side, out of harm's way, and I just waited right in the middle of it. And I don't think we necessarily think about it. It's second nature to most of us to just go, everybody else runs out, we're running in. We're not necessarily first responders, but at the same time, like, that's also our job, is to run towards the danger. And I think either you have it or you don't. It's something that people that do this on the regular basis have that gene that just kind of goes off, or like, that would probably make a really cool picture, I'm just going to go that way. And we go.
Yeah.
There are only so many people in the world that can add Pulitzer Prize winning to their CV. You, of course, are one of them. What's the best and the worst thing about winning a Pulitzer?
Well, full disclosure, I kind of feel a little cheap, having Pulitzer Prize out there. It's not that I wasn't part of the team that won it. It was a story on investigative reporting on toys and cribs and things like that killed children. And so one of the toys was, they used to have these like magnets that you would stick together and play with, and kids would swallow them, and they'd kind of stick together in their intestines, and they would end up dying from it. So when I first won that Pulitzer, I didn't really put it on my resume or something, because I for me, a Pulitzer is, Todd Heisler's, story on the Marines who come in and show, who announce to families that their loved ones have died, and that, and just like the famous photos of the past, those single images, and so a photo Pulitzer is, like, for me, like, the shit. And and I technically won a Pulitzer, but so I didn't put it on my resume for a long time. And then I saw a couple other people I knew who kind of were in the same position I did, and they put Pulitzer on the resume, and I'm like, what the hell, might as well, see what I could, and it really, outside of the photo world, it's the best door opener I can have. Like, I live here in Mill Valley, and I start to meet people who I do yoga with or something, and then when they hear that I won a Pulitzer, they're like so impressed. And and so it's kind of, so it opens a lot of doors. And like, I don't want it to be the first line of my obituary, because there's so much other work I'm more proud of, and awards that I've won that I think are more impressive. But it is that buzzword that, it's not as good as a Nobel Prize, but but anyways, it's something that
Was that a quick dig, or were you...
I don't know. So, but yeah, it was a really amazing story, and I was glad to be part of it. But it would be great someday to win a Pulitzer Prize for my photography instead of just kind of making photos of a really amazing writer's work.
Well, hey, look, I mean, you and I have discussed this many times over the years, but I kind of feel that, at the same time, it is something that you did. It was something that you were a part of, and big part or small part, it's still there. And I know that you've always said, and you've been very open with this. I've heard you say this at a number of different events throughout the years, which is, it's great if I win one, but if I don't win another, then I'm a single winner or a POY winner or all that kind of stuff. So I mean, we're all striving for that. I mean, obviously, I think the goal for many of us is not only to get recognized for our work, but to really get to that level to be able to have a Pulitzer behind it. So, while you may not feel worthy enough of it, you certainly have done enough other things throughout the years that would consist and go towards that. But I mean, you're still at the halfway point of your career. I think you got plenty of time before the whistle blows that you can go after that, because we never know where we're going to be when something's going to strike. And that image, you think about, and I think he won I forget the guy's name that was over in Turkey when the guy came in, the part of his security detail actually assassinated the one guy, and it was at an
Right,
art opening.
right,
Who
right.
saw that coming? I mean, you're there and it happens and we raise up the camera and we do it. So, um, who do you look for inspiration, both personally and professionally? Because I mean, there's the photojournalist, but then there's Scott the person. So between those two, who do you look to for inspiration, photographically and personally?
Photographically, I like following young photographers, just to kind of see what they're seeing. I had the honor to judge College Photography of the Year last year, and the work was just amazing. And just to realize that these are people just starting their career, and how highly developed their eyes are, and just the quality work. So I like hanging out with young photographers and looking at their work, and it's not that I don't enjoy going to National Geographic seminar and getting to rub elbows with the biggest names in the business, but it's just the young people, and I have a voracious photographic appetite. Now, I'll go through. I'm on Instagram all the time, and Twitter and Facebook, and just kind of looking. Even when I'm walking down the street, I want to see something that visually, makes me happy, and so I'm just constantly scanning the world looking for something that's visually interesting. And I think that kind of goes back to when I was a kid. My family every summer would take 2-3 week car trips in our Ford Country Squire station wagon, and we'd pop in the car and we'd
Family
drive around the
truckster.
country. I loved it. And it'd be me, my mom and dad, my two grandparents, my two sisters, all seven of us crammed in a station wagon. And it was the greatest memories. I loved it so much. And I think just looking out the window at America going past is pretty much what trained me to be a photographer, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Um, so I spent a lot of my career just only caring about you know photographing for contests. And I remember early in my career, I'd get so jealous of other photographers that won a contest, and I would see their work, and I'd be like, I guess I have to go shoot a rodeo this year because that won first place, or I think I need to go shoot this because that won first place. I spent so many years chasing other photographers, and it wasn't until I kind of got confidence in my own voice and able to make work for myself instead of trying to please other people. That's when I started being successful. And so I keep track of almost every photographer I can, and I've kind of lost that jealousy that I used to have of good work. And now I'm really happy to see good work and share other people's work. And it definitely, I work at an amazing newspaper right now with an incredibly staff of talented journalists, and so it's really fun to be part of that. And it's weird, this whole pandemic time has um, brought our photo staff so close together. We only would see each other in the past for a couple months at a time at a photo meeting, and now we never see each other. But we're communicating online. We every once in a while we'll have a Zoom call, and it's just been a really amazing experience to watch how this has all brought us together. And the same thing's happening with me and my children. My daughter lives in Hollywood. My son's back in Chicago, and I'm not a great communicator. Like, we barely ever talk on the phone, and we kind of keep touch here and there, but it's not something that we're regularly talking. But now we're having, every Saturday we have a Zoom call, me, my son Cameron, my daughter Betsy, and it's just a blast. And they're both sheltering in place. My daughter works for Paramount in the marketing department, but she's also super talented. She's like an artist, so she's like cranking out these paintings day after day. And so check out Betsy on Instagram. I think it's BEEEETSY, 4 E's, I think. And so like I'm so proud of when my children do something, and more proud than myself. So it's great to watch them grow, and I get inspiration from them, and I think that's and I also living with my fiance Kim. She has two sons. One's a sophomore in college, one's a sophomore in high school, and we're all here together, and they're both incredibly talented, artists and musicians and athletes, and they have an incredible range of skill sets. So it's kind of cool hanging out with them. And so I find inspiration everywhere and everything. And, I love going to movies and stuff like that. We've been watching a lot of documentaries. And so it's just, I kind of constantly, I'm a very simple person. I just kind of walk around the world, very wide-eyed, just kind of enjoying life and being optimistic. And
you're also very active on the different social medias, especially Instagram and Facebook are your two primaries. Bouncing off of talking about that, a lot of the younger photojournalists that are out there, you really enjoy looking at them. Do you ever get excited when, like, if there's a specific person likes one of your images? Because I still get that way. Like, I always know when I've done something good based off of whether you put a like on it. And look, friendship aside, you are who you are in the industry, and I am who I am. I'll always get excited when you like something, or if Mike Williamson likes something, and I'm like, all right, I nailed something. I still get those giddy moments. What about you? Is there anybody that's out there when you see a like pop up, you're like, oh yeah, all right, so and so like this. This is then obviously I did something good.
Yeah, in general, I like all likes. It's like all the likes, bring all in the likes. But yeah, I still get a kick when a famous photographer likes my work. Like I remember one time I made a photo at a White Sox game, and David Burnett said, "Hey, I love that photo. You want to swap prints?" I'm like, "Oh, I'll think about it. It's okay, David." And he said, "You can pick any of the ones I took at the 2012 Olympics." And so, I have this beautiful photo, equestrian photo that David Burnett, made. And so, yeah, I really enjoy, I think one of the reasons I'm an artist or creator is just because I'm the third child of three. It didn't have a lot of attention paid to me as a kid. I had a great childhood and a loving environment, but, my parents were tired from my two sisters. And so I think, I kind of grew, I was kind of, look at this, I'm going to create something and have someone look at it and get feedback. So I think part of, why I share my work so much is because I love the attention. I do. I love, it does drive me at times, and I do like the feedback. And, if I put a photo on Instagram and it gets 20 likes, I'm like, what's wrong? Why don't people like me?
Welcome my daily life. Like not all of us get thousands in the likes. So that's cool. What is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to photography in the 21st century?
Yeah, I do think I kind of, talked about this earlier. It's like photographers that think the next camera that comes along is going to make them a good photographer, and instead of concentrating on the content of the image or kind of improving their craft, they just kind of get caught up in the gear and the lenses and things like that. And so I think, it's not, I kind of ignore it, but it's, when I was on an assignment the other day, and some people like, "Hey, what kind of camera is that? How many megapixels does it have?" And I have no idea, like 5? Is that good? It's just like, and so I, I really, I love having new cameras handed to me at work, but I also don't like it because I get so comfortable with my camera that like it's second nature, and I don't need to think about it, and that's how it should be. And so when I get a new camera handed to me, then it's like, oh, I got to learn this, and I have a period where it takes a while. So like kind of thinking back earlier when I was talking about my disappointment with who I was as a photographer earlier, even though I do like a lot of the images I made. I have to remember that when I shot a Chicago Bulls NBA Finals game, I would maybe shoot 10 rolls of film, 360 images. And now when I shoot a Warriors NBA Finals game, I probably shoot 5,000 images. And the cameras are so much better. And, I can shoot, the ISO is never an issue. And so, it definitely, I think if I had bring a modern camera back into those Bulls days, I would probably have a lot more images to share just because I'd be just like, I still am trying to capture good moments, but when you can just burn off 5,000 frames in a basketball game, you're going to have a couple good ones.
I have a funny story that I'm going to share with everybody. And just FYI, once again, if you've got a question for Scott or myself, feel free to ask over in the Q&A area. I remember once, I don't even know if it was the iPhone you have now or two iterations of it ago, but I remember you were doing your from the hip, and you finally got one of the newer iPhones, and it was like the world had opened. Like you had been so just using this one iPhone that probably was like 2 megapixels, and the focus was spotty at best. And I remember you texting me when you got the new one, dude, I don't know what I was so afraid of. This is amazing. Like you were just so excited about that. And it was an iPhone of all things. So
yeah, I'm a creature of habit. It's really hard for me. Change is something that I'm kind of averse to, but once I change, it's like, hey, that's not so bad.
So we're all kind of in the same boat right now as far as what you can photograph. So what's the biggest problem that you're currently grappling with from a photographic standpoint? It's one of those things where like, we can only take so many pictures of empty streets or people in windows or people in masks. So what's the biggest issue that you personally are finding with this?
Like I don't want to, like kind of lessen how horrible this is in the world and the lives that have been lost and just kind of the anxiety people are going through and the people have lost their jobs. It's absolutely horrible. And, but in general, like this is a really amazing time to be a journalist. It's, I think I'm operating at the top of my game. We don't have much time anymore. It's kind of back in the old days where you have a 10-minute assignment, you have to get in and make the images and get out. Um, you know, I've always kind of, to steal a line from Gregory Crewdson, who's a famous art photographer who says that his favorite photos are the intersection of beauty and sadness. And I've said this many, many times. That intersection is out there every day now. And so I've kind of been working on some personal projects. The first one started on March 17th when the Bay Area shut down restaurants, and I started photographing restaurants through their closed windows or just the facade. And over the last month or so, I've continued that project, and it's been just fascinating to just kind of watch the process of how this is happening, where first it started out where you could see through the windows, and then a lot of places have boarded up, and some have like newspapers on the window, and then a newspaper falls down, you can kind of get a peek into the restaurant. So it's been really fascinating to kind of document that particular scene. And then just maybe in the last week or so, I've started documenting San Francisco, in my shooting from the hip style with a Hipstamatic black and white, and just kind of finding moments and that are not as literal as my newspaper work. And I've been, I've always sometimes rushed through assignments that I don't find visually interesting. Like if I have something that's not interesting to me, I'll just work on it for 5 or 10 minutes. And I know that's not really a great thing. And so I feel like I'm taking a little more care with making every image count and working a scene. And I photographed this one woman the other day, Cambria, who lost her childhood sweetheart to COVID. And, she was gracious to give me about an hour we spent at a park, and it was one of those situations like she doesn't want you to photograph in her home. So we're just going to take her to a park, and you're like, ugh, but like I was really, wanted to make good images, and she was really agreeable. So we just kind of, moved under trees and shade, through the tree, and it just, the images had a lot of, just soul and mood and, and that I think is the interesting thing about right now is that a lot of the images, like they're all relying on context. It's like you could make an image of an empty street in San Francisco 2 years ago on a rainy day or on a Sunday morning, but now an empty street in San Francisco or whatever city you live in has so much more meaning, so it's it'll be interesting in a year, hopefully when we're all finished with this, hopefully, to look back and see which images still resonate and which ones were just, here's an empty street, so I'm trying to make images that work in the moment, but also work in the future. I'm not sure, how I'm doing, but it definitely, for us who are working out there, it is a challenge. And I'm taking precautions, with the mask and washing my hands and all that stuff and staying 6 feet away from people. But at the same time, our photo staff is working on a year-long project called Class of 2020, where we each are following a high school student. And it started out just as a year in a student's life, and then all of a sudden, the coronavirus has totally changed the focus of the story. And so just kind of trying to, the kids aren't in school anymore, graduation's canceled, prom's canceled. So just trying to find these moments within a kid's life, and also not really being able to spend as much time as you used to with them, has been a challenge, but also, interesting. And so it definitely, it's gonna, there's some great bodies of work going on out there. Barbara Davidson is doing a great portrait series in downtown LA of the people there. And, Todd Heisler is doing some amazing work. I think Todd needs to pay me something. I've mentioned him 4 times already. Todd's doing some great work at the New York Times. There was some amazing work out of Italy. And Spain. And so I'm not going to be photographing a pile of dead bodies anywhere or going into a nursing home. So you just kind of have to try to photograph, the moments that kind of a little more subtle, but still try to have that mood and the gravity of the situation.
Gotcha. What are the top 3 things on your photographic bucket list?
That's a good question. I don't know how many are left. That's such a good question. I want to go to Siberia. Siberia fascinates me. I'd like to go to Siberia on the coldest day.
I was going to say, you don't want to go sit on a mountainside for 16 hours, but you want to go to Siberia.
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm taking photographs, I think that'd be cool. But as events in the world, that's a good question. I don't know what my bucket list is anymore. It's like, the Olympics were always something I really wanted to shoot. And, I'm not a photographer who likes color for some reason. There's certain colors I don't like photographing. I don't like photographing green, and I don't like photographing orange. Like, I don't want to go to India just because there's too much orange there. Is that weird? And I think I don't like primary colors a lot. It's so strange. I've never thought of this before, but yeah, it's like I do have like these preferences, and like I like landscapes that are barren. I would love to go spend some time in, New Brunswick or Nova Scotia or Iceland. I kind of like industrial landscapes. I was in Bratislava, Bulgaria once, and it's Sofia, Bulgaria, Bratislava, Slovakia. I loved it. It was like everything was gray, and then there'd just be a pop of red somewhere. And so anyways, I'm just totally babbling. So I don't really have a list for you, but I just kind of like being surprised by life and just kind of, have things come along and just kind of be open to experiences and open to, things. Because people always say, well, what's your next book or what's your next project? And, I don't know. It'll find me,
So we had a question that came in from Michelle, of all people, and she wants to know, are these color preferences in real life too, or just photography?
I think real life too. Yeah. The one I like red wine. Like I like that. Red's nice there.
This I know. So
yeah. Michelle, don't send me anything orange. I don't like pumpkins.
That's a whole nother thing that we have with a friend of ours that won't eat anything orange. Finally, before we get to the seconds out portion, which is our
I do like cheese puffs though. I'm okay with
okay,
cheese
the
puffs.
cheese puffs are all right. Well, it depends on, are you talking about the Planters, the cheese balls? Are you talking about Jacks, like the cheese puffs? Like, there's varying degrees of cheese
Yeah,
puffs.
not so much Cheetos, more like the Cheeto, the puffy ones. The puffy
Gotcha.
ones.
Jacks, like
This is
I don't know if they have Jacks out. Bachman's, which is an East Coast thing. I don't know if they have them out on the West Coast. We're almost at the top of the hour, so I've got one more question. Then we go into seconds out, which is our version of the lightning round. What do you think is your most useless talent that you have?
Most useless talent. Yes, I have a lot of useless talents, I think. Well, like a lot of my talents now are home based. I'm doing a lot of dishes, so that's not useless, and laundry. Let's see. Boy, should have given me these beforehand. I'd have better answers. Useless talent. It'll come back. It'll come to me.
Okay.
Move on.
Fair enough. And then finally, since we didn't get an answer, I've got a bonus question that I always keep up here just in case. What's the most ridiculous way you've hurt yourself in your career?
Well, the one thing about being a photographer, you just embarrass the hell out of yourself all the time, and you do it in front of like thousands and thousands of people. So twice I've had cameras pushed back into my face by a basketball and started bleeding profusely in the middle of playoff basketball games. But like not hurt so much, but once I was leaving a high school basketball game and my motor drive, which had 12 AA batteries in it, was kind of broken, and somehow the battery thing fell out and 12 AA batteries went all over the floor during the middle of a basketball game. That was embarrassing. But this wasn't even your question, but I'm going with it. The most embarrassing that ever happened to me was I was photographing Tiger Woods in the Western Open in suburban Chicago, and I covered him for all 18 holes. And after the ninth hole, I had to, once again, I talk about bathroom breaks a lot here. I had to go to the outhouse, the restroom there. And so I came out and started covering Tiger again. And 3 holes later, a photographer said to me, "Hey, Scott, you got some toilet paper sticking out of your shorts, and it looks a little used." And so I followed Tiger Woods for 3 holes inside the ropes with like 20,000 people in the gallery with poopy toilet paper sticking out of my shorts, and no one said anything. That's the highlight of my career right there.
Can we talk more of the fact that there were no images that were put out there after? That with everybody that was there, somewhere that one of those images would have shown up.
You would think.
Oh my God.
If there was iPhones, it definitely would have. It would have been on. Yeah, it would have gone viral.
That is too funny. All right. It's time for seconds out, our version of lightning round with your last 5 answers, although I may have 6 just because you ducked out on a couple of the questions that you have. What would be the title of your memoir?
Yeah, it definitely would be Shooting from the Hip. It's kind of trite, and I've always used that, kind of run it into the ground, but it works on multiple levels. I think that things that work on multiple levels.
Fair enough.
But my most useless talent is coming up with quirky names for bands.
Which is crazy because I actually had in my seconds out question earlier, what would be the name of your band if you ever decided to do one? And I took it out thinking to myself, I got better ones to ask than that. And sure enough, you bring this up. All right. So what would be the name of your band?
The Hair Flips.
If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Why haven't the Chicago White Sox won more World Series? It's sad.
Okay.
They're sad.
What's the most ridiculous fact you know?
Wow, these are good. I like these.
Thank you.
Are really good questions with not good answers. I do like trivia. I really enjoy trivial things. So I probably know a lot of useless information. Let me see what a good useless fact is. This is putting me on the spot here, BP. I'll hold that one. I'll percolate while we're talking. Okay. Move on.
Obviously, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've had to take down a lot of names over the years. What's the funniest name you have actually heard used in the real world?
Like person's name?
Like a person's name.
Oh my God! Like Did you see the Key and Peele thing on the East-West All-Star teams? Have you ever seen that? Oh,
I'm not a
oh
big
my
sports
God.
person, so
Okay,
you're
so
asking
okay,
the wrong
okay,
guy.
so Google Key and Peele. I think it's like East-West Shrine Game, and they go through like
Are you talking
uh,
about like all like AA Ramon and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
Martavius
Yeah,
Single Hopper or whatever.
I have seen that.
Yeah, that cracks me up. So
No, I was just curious, like in throughout the years as you were writing stuff for the Slug, if there was anything like
oh,
the one of those most ridiculous names that you're just like that can't be your real name.
oh well, I guarantee I misspelled it. That's like one of my like I make so many caption errors. Ugh, I'm surprised I haven't been fired because it's like I'm always rushing through trying to send out captions as quick as I can, and I'm always misspelling
Yeah.
the into TEH or something.
Um,
Coming up with no answers, BP. I'm
nah,
sorry.
it's look, it's all right. I purposely never share these if I don't have to because I like watching people squirm. It's my thing. What set of items could you buy that would make the cashier the most uncomfortable?
Oh, let me see. That's a good one. Um, probably. I don't know. I was gonna get dirty, but then there might be
Nah,
kids out there watching.
we
Let's leave
right
it
right now.
all.
I can tell you
Just
right now there are no kids on this
any
broadcast.
phallic vegetables, just a lot, like 144 cucumbers or something,
And then like
and
3 boxes of condoms to go with them.
KY jelly or
Yeah.
something. But I've never
Fantastic.
had problem buying tampons. I don't care. That
Okay.
doesn't embarrass me. Any women out there, if you need tampons, I'll get them for you.
Scott will get them for you. FedEx, overnight, whatever. Finally, originally made famous by Bernard Pivot and then uber famous by the late James Lipton. What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I like motherfucker. It's 2 words, but it's pretty good. A mother.
It depends. It depends on how you look at it. I've always spelled it as one word.
Yeah. Or just I always like combining fucking Jesus, and that's always good too. Holy fucking! I can't say it now. What's like a good Jesus throwing in there? Like Jesus fucking Christ. That's that. Okay, I'm gonna make a new answer. Jesus fucking Christ is my
Okay.
favorite swear word.
Fair enough.
Sorry if there's anyone's religious out there and then
Uh,
offended them. I apologize.
Anybody that's watching this that knows me knows there are very little lines out there, so it's all good. Well, look, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Before we sign off, if you wouldn't mind, share your social media handles. Let us know anything that's going on. I know you've got C Prints, which is a new project that you've been doing. I know there's a lot of stuff that's out there. Anything that you'd like to promote, anything like that, now would be the time.
Yeah, so social media, everything's my name, at Scott Strazzanti. But yeah, strazprints.com. That's, living in the Bay Area is not cheap, and being a newspaper photographer does not pay well. So I'm always trying to do side hustles. And so my latest thing is the Pacific series, which you talked about, which is some abstract photography. If you look over my shoulder right there, there's one. And anyway, so if you go on strazprints.com,
And is
I
that
have
STRAZZ or
yeah, STRAZZ prints.com, and I have some common ground diptychs on there and some shooting from the hip black and white. I'll be putting some of my classic Chicago sports up there in a couple of weeks. I gotta take advantage of the Last Dance documentary and all the excitement. I saw a thing on today that like Chicago Bulls memorabilia on eBay is up over 5,000%. So I got to
Wow.
get some stuff on eBay too. But anyways, yeah. But yeah, if you could buy a print from me, it would be greatly appreciated. And it doesn't even have to be one that's on my website. If you just see anything on my Instagram, I'd be more than happy to make a deal with you. And if you don't have a lot of money, I'm up for print swaps. I love print swaps. So just reach out to me. Very easy to find me. I'm very Googleable. Strazzanti at sfchronicle.com. You can get me at. And if you ever have any questions or want to share work with me, I love looking at strangers' photography. So, I'm very open with my time, and it'll probably freak you out how quickly I get back to you. You'll be like, "Whoa, this guy must have no life because he responded to my email in 1 minute." But that's that's
That's how you
one of
roll.
my skills. That's
And
going
then
back to useless skill.
finally, I always allow people to ask me one question. So if you have any question that you want to ask, what would it be?
What's your personal project that you want to work on in the next 10 years?
You mean and actually see it to completion?
Yes, yes.
Uh, oh man, I think I'll go back to what you and I have actually spoken about, which is going out during tornado season and actually going storm chasing. That is absolutely on my bucket list. Because when I lived out in the Midwest, I was doing photography, but I wasn't doing it full time as well. I was still working in radio, and just was kind of like, I really, really, really want to do it now. Obviously, I thought maybe we would have a chance this year, but that kind of got blown out the window. If anything, I mean, I'm sure it'd be a great time to actually go out and photograph it because nobody is out, but can't really stay anywhere. So I think that for me, that doing there's actually two. There's another thing. There's a movie that came out in 1985 or 86 called Fandango, and it was one of Kevin Costner's first films. It was Judd Nelson, and one of my favorite movies. And they have a thing that they do down in Texas, in like deep, 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 like border Texas, called the Ultimate Fandango. And they used to do it every year, and then they went to like every 2 years. And I had actually blocked off time to go this year because some of the locations that they shot at were just amazing. And I actually had to cancel my plans to go down in October because all of our spring shoots that we had scheduled have now been postponed until the fall. And the 2 weeks that I kind of blocked out for myself to drive down, because I was going to drive down and take my time and see things to make photographs of as on the way down, can't do it now. So that's on the top of my list as well. So thank you for being here once again. This has been 10 Rounds, brought to you by our friends at Icon Media Works. They are a full service design and marketing agency specializing in brand creation and promotion, located in the heart of downtown Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. You can go and find them at iconmediaworks.com. Scott, thank you so much for taking time to join us here on 10 Rounds. I hope I didn't put you too much on the spot with some of these.
No, I got all the answers flooding into my head now. So
yeah, well, and I was going to say,
when we do rounds 11 through 20, I'll have more answers for you.
And for everybody that is watching, I am going to try to edit this and throw it up on Facebook, since Facebook streaming was not working today. And if we have some additional answers that Scott sends me after this broadcast ends, we will send them along as well. So once again, thank you all for joining us here on 10 Rounds. We've got a couple of interesting ones coming up. We'll be advertising those soon. We've got some actors out in Hollywood that'll be joining us. We've got some people here in Philadelphia that are media personalities, and a couple of other surprises down the road. So thank you once again. My name is BP Miller. I've been your host. This has been 10 Rounds with Scott Strazzani. Thanks, everybody. Take care.